Okay, so today we have Adam Morris, who I think many folks probably know, certainly no stranger to the open standards world and Kronos specifically. I think he and I met several years ago when Adam was at Target and then was contributing to the 3D Commerce Group using glTF there. Then over the last 2 years, I've had the pleasure of working with Adam here at Cesium, doing a lot with glTF and 3D tiles. And then earlier this year, when the Adobe USD file formats plugin came out as open source, Adam took it for a spin, looking at conversion paths to glTF and then to 3D tiles, and then more recently has looked at it again. So he is going to share his insights with us today. So Adam, over to you.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you for the awesome introduction, Patrick. Yes. I'm Adam. I'm Adam Morris. You'll have to forgive me. I'm uh, recovering from the flu, so a little frazzled today, but we'll be good getting through this and everything. So, yeah. So what I'm going to talk about today is kind of my experiences with the Adobe File Formats plugin and basically going from USD to glTF with the undertone that, the original idea behind this was going from USD to glTF and then using those glTFs as an intermediate to throw into our tilers for 3D tiling. So I worked with this beginning thesis back in, I guess it was February or so, right after that plugin came out, because this was something that I had been thinking about for a while, and we had been thinking about within Cesium internally. And the idea is, what does an ideal automated workflow for converting USD to 3D tiles using glTF look like? And since 3D Tiles 1.1 is effectively a wrapper around glTF, the Adobe file format plugin had a lot of promising use for us, and we wanted to basically see at the time what was possible. And I originally wrote this presentation, and I think I was supposed to present it, but then I got sick with COVID that time. So it's not been a great year for illness, but yeah, so I've kind of updated this presentation since then. I've rerun things, and the first thing I really want to stress is that Adobe has done an awesome job with this plugin, and I'll go more into that in a moment. And so the critical path that I had come up with for my prototype was to kind of load the USD, export it as glTF, and then input it into what we call our reality tiler, which is our photogrammetry tiler. And then we'd have the 3D tiles of the USD. Today, for our purposes within this call, what I'm going to focus on is largely this section in red, which is loading the USD and exporting it as glTF, which turns out is really easy because the Adobe USD file format plugin is so good. So if you're not familiar with what this set of plugins does, it adds file format plugins for OBJ, PLY, STL, glTF, and FBX to USD. All of these plugins do support import and export, but there's caveats with all of them. It does use USD itself, which is fantastic because that basically gives you full capability to modify the stage before you actually do your export. And you can utilize your custom USD schemas and so forth as you need for your uses. The code is also really well laid out. It's very clean, and it should be relatively easy to contribute to if and thus you have time and the need. And again, as I said, I originally wrote this presentation months ago. I've now updated it based on a lot of my experiences, and I would have to say most of the issues that I had run into at the time and I was talking about in this presentation, they're gone, which is great. There are still kind of two things that I'll talk a little bit on. Build issues and materials issues. And I'm just going to touch a little bit on the build woes. I don't want to harp on these too much because unfortunately, this is kind of a known in the USD ecosystem. Setting up USD and any plugins on a new system is almost always painful. In this case, it was ironic because I had just done a fresh format when I did this the first time months ago, and now I have a new computer so many months later, and in both cases I encountered some old issues, some new issues, and this varies from weird boost issues to using an old Draco vision that won't compile in Ubuntu systems that are newer than the 2204 LTS, which isn't even the most recent LTS anymore. And this really kind of boils down to within the USD ecosystem. I think there's a maybe a real need that needs to be done to kind of try to improve a little bit of this, because there is no quick and easy path to getting really anything in USD working. If you have an idea and you've never worked with USD before, and you say, okay, well, I'm going to try this.
So exactly.
It kind of goes down the route of like, hey, like this might be it can be discouraging if you don't have experience within the USD ecosystem, basically. And there's things that are really, really super helpful, such as the TF debug flags and such. And if you actually look in the documentation, unless this has changed in the past couple of months, a lot of these are not very well documented. So that's all I'm going to talk about this. The good news with all these build issues that I've had is that it works really well. The plugin is awesome. The teapot here is just a glTF. It is the USD teapot test asset that's in the official sample assets for USD on glTF. I also am using the Pixar Kitchen sample asset that you can download from the USD website. And that's actually tiled as a 3D tile right there. So it's got LOD and everything right in there. And so a few stats and facts before I dive a little bit further into my investigation. The entire script to generate that USD Pixar Kitchen into a 3D tile was 41 lines of code for me. Now, obviously, that's calling other applications and stuff a little bit, but the USD portion is very, very, very easy. It's about 5 lines, and actually, you could break that down to 2 lines if you weren't formatting. I did notice in a lot of my testing that there are issues with materials in several cases. And I think this is a challenge for at least us at Cesium. And I suspect in some of the commerce areas as well. We do need to be able to support a variety of shader models. And right now, the plugin really is only kind of supporting a handful. Um, you know, this is, I think, probably the biggest hurdle for us right now. So for my very first attempt, what I did was I tried to go for point break. I tried to go for broke, and I tried to take the Mediterranean city example on the USD website, which is extremely complicated if you've ever worked with it before. And for a plugin that was just like, hot off the press, it broke immediately. It crashed glTF transform in Blender. It was creating tons of errors. However, I opened the issue with Adobe, and Adobe promptly fixed it. And I actually have tried it again since then, and it works great. There are some issues with materials, but that's again kind of I think expected in some regards. So you can see that there are some surfaces that are missing. And I did notice that there were some missing texture coordinates, so that could be part of this as well. My second attempt was kind of a more realistic attempt, and then my subsequent attempts were similar to my second attempt. So this is kind of a realistic scenario from our perspective. So I took one of our example models from Cesium for Omniverse, and this one in particular is a boundary road design that was shared with us by a partner. And so, but because it uses Omni PBR, and I believe that's how it was given to us, it just straight up won't work with the USD file format plugins because we don't have a way of converting those plugins right now. This is kind of a relatively big problem for us, and I think this is maybe, again, this is kind of the one area where I think we would all like to see improvement. But we do believe that Material X with the MDL background could provide a workaround for this, but we just haven't had time to actually test it out. And so, just kind of going through the ideas of what our future steps and any open questions that we have. You know, we've been watching developments closely, and we are truly impressed and excited with what we've seen. I want to stress very, very strongly the amount of work that you guys at Adobe have done to improve this in the past couple of months is astronomical, and really do think you guys get a lot of applaud for that. What would be helpful is guidance to how to best handle materials from a wide variety of sources. And then the other big thing is I do think the build issues are maybe a limiting factor right now. Hilariously, if you are on some of the Kronos mailing lists, you might have noticed a message that went out from a colleague of ours who was complaining about some of these same USD build problems. So yeah, thank you for your time, and I, would love to talk more about this.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Adam, and thanks for doing this while you're a little under the weather there. Look, really cool to hear your firsthand experience there, and it sounds super promising. So we'll go over for questions from folks. Neil has his hand up.
Yeah, first, lots of thanks for doing this, Adam. Lots of questions. First one's an easy one. So, plugins. Did you plug into Blender? Is that the apps you're plugging into for this test? Is that the testing platform here?
No, actually, yeah. So sorry. I actually was just using the USD, and so this is kind of the script that these plugins are actually USD plugins. So what I was doing was I was actually using the USD API within Python to actually handle this.
Okay. But which platform is it? Omniverse or?
No, I was just doing straight up USD. So
Okay.
yeah.
So this is my naivety then, but sorry for the dumb question. So
No, it's not a dumb question.
You can run the converters like standalone then? Is that one way you can use it?
Yeah, so I think you could use USD Cat perhaps as a standalone converter. I haven't tried that. All of my uses of this plugin so far have been to, and this is just based on my own experiences with working with USD and kind of how I've always done it. And maybe somebody could tell me if there's a better way here. I've always just taken the time to actually go through Python and write a quick Python script. I do want to add that I have not tried to pull these plugins into the Omniverse USD stuff. I imagine it would work. I just haven't tried it out yet. So you could probably use these plugins within Omniverse through the console as well.
Okay.
For Neil, did you say you had more than one question?
I did, but I didn't want to hog. So, but we'll dive into the materials discussion. I think that's really interesting. But I think this is an easy. I take it you didn't try animations yet. That's probably not relevant for your testing. Just confirming.
I did do a little bit.
Okay.
And so this image right here, the USDZ bike in glTF, that is actually properly animated. So the animations actually did work when I brought that in. I don't have that open as a sample right now. The one thing that I've noticed, and I understand from conversations with Adobe, is that this is expected. Animations from the USD direction to glTF, from that direction, USD to glTF, they should work fine. From glTF to USD, there's still work that they have to do on their side for that. So that is still a in progress piece.
Okay, but that's cool. So the animations that were there, as you say, that they worked. So that's
yeah,
good. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the one thing about the USDZ bike is that it does have multiple animations. And it was, at least it didn't seem like at the time that there was a good way for me to kind of get them all animated at once, as you would expect within the USD ecosystem. But that could have just been me, and a problem exists between keyboard and chair situation.
So Adam, other takeaways here? I mean, you mentioned maybe some challenges with the build and that, maybe materials we need to get to the next level. But it sounds like there's a lot of just working out of the box, right?
Yeah, and that's, I think, it's too bad because I actually see that the Adobe guys aren't here, and I think I might just send Dwight an email myself. But when I tested this out at the first time at the beginning of the year, it was not nearly as plug and play. But once I got past the expected build issues to kind of get everything working on my new system and kind of dived back in and rerun my tests and such. I had set up 10 tests before. When I first started, 8 of them failed, 2 passed. This time, it was the other way around. 8 passed, 2 failed. So, yeah, and I think that goes a long ways into the amount of development that Adobe has invested on this. And at this point in time, I would argue that it is very much just plug and play. You pull it down, you get it building, and then you play with it. Unfortunately, that's not quite the truth, because unless you already have USD set up on your system, and it's set up the exact way that the plugin needs, which is another problem. Yeah, I mean, that's I think a barrier to entry still, but that I think is way wider than just this plugin, and potentially even this group, the interoperability group. Yeah.
Look, it's great to hear that Adobe's doing all that good work maintaining and advancing the project.
Yeah.
Other questions for Adam? Neil, it's all you.
Well, it's not really a question, but I think it's a really interesting topic, and we have Aaron and Phil here and others from the USD side. I mean, how should we? It's the materials. Can you go back the slide? I think it's on the previous slide, Adam. You had the kind of list. Yeah. Back. Yeah. That one.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry.
Obviously, it's obviously a strength of the USD ecosystem that you have this flexibility. But in terms of the glTF USD interoperability, do you have any guidance as to which of the material models we should be aiming to converge with first? Is that even a sensible question?
Open PBR is probably where convergence is trending, and I believe Autodesk has given presentations in this group before about harmonizing Open PBR and glTF PBR.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I'd like to see things trend. If folks have if there's stuff that falls outside of that, definitely curious to hear it. But certainly from the MDL side, that's what we want to pivot Omni PBR to Open PBR and have it be backed by Material X and all that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's consistent with what I heard before. Yeah. Does that, and does kind of looping this circle back? So if that is a thing, Adam, does that help from what you're trying to do? I mean,
yeah,
is that a path?
I mean, I think Open PBR, once it's really kind of fully arrived, I think Open PBR solves the problem. Especially, and I do believe Dwight's team has plans of switching over to use Open PBR internally within the file format plugins when it's fully arrived. I guess I'm under the impression that that's going to be a little bit of a ways off. So yeah, but that's one of those things where it's like, I think it's worth being patient for.
Yeah. And I know from the glTF side, the PBR group is trying to figure out how to close the gaps between the glTF PBR model and open PBR. So I think that is definitely a convergence point.
Yeah, one thing that I think would be super useful, just in general for the USD community is education on Material X and using Material X within USD, because it's kind of lackluster. And I've managed to muscle through it quite a bit myself. But finding good resources for learning how to handle Material X within USD and all that sort of stuff, it's been hard to find those resources. So that's just maybe another angle that the community could maybe look at as well.
Yeah, good input. Neil or Adam, other suggestions or things you think we should be doing for materials?
Well, I can continue in my newbie mode, asking naive questions. Hopefully, it's useful for other people too. So, but just following up on that last point. So, if Open PBR is the convergence point, does that fold in Material X? Again, it's just kind of a naive question. I'm just trying to understand. I should go and look. I should know this. I don't. Does Open PBR and Material X they work together?
Open PBR is needing Material X version 1.39, a version that is rarely supported currently with VFX tools, and everybody who's on the VFX yearly change. And yeah, most tools are on the version 1.38.
Okay.
And that's a major problem.
Okay. Cool. No, thank you for the pointer. I'll go dig that out.
Kronos has a project going using version 139 to go from Material X to define the structure necessary to go from Material X to the Kronos PBR, glTF PBR. That's under progress right now.
And just
Yeah, the yearly. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on, Neil.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say the yearly VFX kind of release cycle brings a lot of stability to the community, and I think that's actually one of the better things about USD. At first, I was kind of not 100% convinced about it. Over time, it's grown on me. The one downside of it is it does mean that things tend to take a little bit longer to mature. And I think the open PBR stuff is definitely kind of a piece of that.
And just just to loop, trying to connect the dots again in my own head. So Leonard, the work that we're doing on the glTF side to converge with Material X 139 is that relevant? Is that going to help with the open PBR convergence? I guess that's the dots I'm trying to connect. Is there a dot?
So I'm sure there's people that are better knowledgeable on that than I am. My understanding is that open PBR is a implementable subset of Material X.
Yeah, okay.
So Bernard is doing the work on this, and it's unlikely that he's going to focus on portions of Material X that are not being implemented, since this is to help the group determine how to progress forward. So it's not explicitly restricted to open PBR. He's well aware of where open PBR boundaries are. My understanding is his intent is to stay within them.
Yeah, okay.
Neil, you have other beginner questions? I see James here in chat is encouraging them.
Uniquely qualified for the newbie questions.
But folks, what other? Please go ahead.
I'm going to say the work that tooling has done aligns with what Adam did, except tooling's more approaching it a little bit more from the glTF side. glTF's language and capabilities and animation exceeds that of USD's right now, and USD people are aware of that. They're looking to increase the functionality so that there'll be alignment on animation. Pretty much leaving only Material X, just a small little piece of everything we see as the biggest difference in things. glTF is very specific about what materials it supports, whereas USD does not and allows you to import any material system. I think that's one of the big things that has caused Adam some problems, and probably anybody who's doing conversion work right now.
Yeah, well said. So Leonard, with that said, as you're putting together that interoperability test project, did Adam's presentation here give you any ideas, just validate anything that we're considering or anything new that we should?
Nothing new, because right now we're standing looking at it sort of in glTF land, looking at USD and seeing this very large potential space of moving into. Generally, we don't anticipate running into any real problems moving into that, except for the known animation issue. It's when we come back in, the PBR PSG is mostly addressing the material side of things. So the basic functions and the support for just are you creating the right kind of glTF file all appears to be there, but we're working in making sure that the important edge cases are being have been tested. So we're building a test suite that handles the important edge cases. Somewhat akin to the FBX project here, in that they're not trying to do conversion of everything possible to and from FBX or from FBX land, but just the important places. The ones that are frequently used, important for significant pipelines and things like that. I would like to have Adam attend the Friday tooling call if you can. That way you can talk to the identified colleague and commiserate together.
Yeah, absolutely. I can make it this week.
Yeah, kudos Adam for the presentation. It's a super hard topic to solve, as we found
Really
in our
is.
own internal stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun for sure. Yeah, I don't have much to contribute other than just interested to learn more.
Eric, look, thanks for sharing Ben's spreadsheet here in chat. If folks haven't seen it yet, it compares a lot of the PBR specifications in pretty big detail.
Yeah, it's nowhere complete, certainly, but it's a step in the right direction to kind of help understand how things are similar and different. It's just really hard dealing with really different, BSDFs and BRDFs between them, because everything shades just slightly differently. I guess it's always going to be a lossless or always a lossy conversion. It's just how close can you get,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and
It's
I mean,
better
there's
than
the
nothing,
whole
right?
part about, do you just copy the values or do you actually try to adjust the values? Because if you just copy the values, then yeah, that's super lossy, but it's relatively simple to do. But if you don't just copy the values and you actually try to correct for them and make it look correct, well, that gets astronomically harder very quickly.
Also, I think there can be some significant differences in why somebody's using USD versus what they may want out in glTF. And so we may have a conversion where the intent in USD was to build a feature film, and that the target was thought to be feature films, but somebody along the way wants to extract out some glTF models. Now the whole material writing system is different and the equations are different. So you may have one set of parameters and chain conversions for that, and a different where you're building entirely for a game under different circumstances.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I posted another one in chat. Some of the current work that we're doing is converting from V-Ray out to glTF, and that gets to the second point that Adam, you were talking about, which is it's not just a straight copying of data in a lot of places, it's translating, so changing data to get there. But something that we found super helpful is to actually use something that's in the sidebar there called QC tools. And that basically, a lot of people are doing this, right? Doing comparison tools, comparing input versus output and doing a pixel-wise comparison to see what's different. That helps us a ton, and that probably could be integrated into maybe Adobe's tools to kind of help assess, are your conversions faithful or not, and where do they fall apart? I know NVIDIA has a really good comparison tool, for example.
Other thoughts here?
No,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, no, thank you, Eric, for the links. This is interesting. I mean, DGG, I mean, does obviously awesome work on all of this stuff. I mean, are you working in parallel with the Adobe stuff, for the USD glTF in Interop? Can you give a little context?
Yeah, we are working with Adobe, but not on that particular function. We're working on some other stuff with them that I can't really talk about, but
Sure.
But yeah, there's a lot of effort involved in trying to get compatibility between different tools. So I know that they tend to favor their own tool for conversion to USD to and from. So yeah, a lot of work yet to be done.
Should we invite kind of glancing at Patrick? Should we invite DGG at some point, to talk about your USD, glTF, USD experiences?
Yeah, that might help. We're kind of in the fairly early stages as far as USD support goes, but we've been doing USD preview surface for a long time.
Sure.
And there are certainly issues there converting between glTF and USDZ or USD preview surface. So yeah, we could talk about that.
Yeah, then Eric, I also recently saw Max post on Twitter. I just put in the chat here. So I actually, Neil, it's funny you asked because I had it on the backlog to reach out.
Cool.
Eric, what is that? Is that something soon, or is that something for next year where you might want to come, you or Max or whoever from DGG?
Yeah, we could do it sometime this year. You said the 16th is available. Let me check with my team and see who's a good person to present on this.
Okay, yeah, could you please email us soon, just so we know, so if you're not able to do it, we can find someone else.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll ask around and let you know.
Cool. Okay, folks, so we still have like 8 minutes left for the official meeting. Other questions for Adam or thoughts this is bringing up? Has anyone else been using this project here from Adobe? Any other experiences folks want to share in either direction, USD to glTF or glTF with USD with this tool? Cool. Adam, were there any questions you were expecting from the group that you haven't got yet, or other topics you thought might come up?
No, the questions that I had expected did actually come up. So thank you, Neil. Yeah, I guess I just want to thank all you guys for having me today. And yeah, I'm excited to see what Adobe has for the future with this plugin and just the community as a whole. So thank you.